Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Sam Wilshus, and today I am making this number one as accurate as I can make it without going overboard. Now, I got a whole 20-minute video behind this intro, but let me just skip everything and tell you exactly what I did, and then if you're still interested, you can watch and see all the details. For this rifle, I did all the usual stuff. I made sure that the scope was put on and everything was tightened evenly to 20 inch-pounds, all that, so there's no tension in this system. Made sure that the stock was on tight, so there's a bolt in here, made sure that was nice and tight. And then I paid attention to the forend. Now, on the Ruger forend, that's the thing you're gonna find the most information about how to make it more accurate, and that can also make it pretty inaccurate. In this video, I did all that and it still shot terribly. I ended up having to send it back to Ruger, where they ended up repairing the crown. Turns out there was some big issues with the crown, and you'll see in the video there were some crazy inaccuracies. So once they removed that, like, gosh, maybe even 1/1000th, 2/1000th of an inch and cleaned it up, it shot perfectly. This is the part that made the gun accurate. I made this polyethylene plug that goes on the backside of the swivel for the sling. And then I added some brass shim stock. The reason that shim stock is there is because it relieves the pressure on the forend. Now, when this forend was fit correctly, you can hand tighten with this screw. So if you take your fingers and you tighten that as far as you can, within reason, and then take a screwdriver, and it should turn maybe a quarter turn at the most. That quarter turn is putting enough pressure on the front where it's going to keep things just so. The last little detail on the forend is you want it kind of free floated, sort of. You only want contact back here and right here. So you should be able to fit something thin like receipt paper along both edges, and that would be appropriate. Now you just have contact on both sides and the top. That's how I got this thing as accurate as possible. Now if you want, keep watching the video. You can see all my struggles and a whole lot of detail about how I ended up getting everything tuned up right there. Okay, this is the 7mm. The first shot was right here, then a second shot, third shot, and fourth shot. Now, I'm going to shoot this gun as a comparison, just to see if I am shooting like crap, or if it is the gun. This is a Ruger M77. Ooh. And this is what a hunting rifle at 75 yards should shoot. Well, this went kind of as I expected, not very good though. Now, whether fortunately or unfortunately, I am shooting just fine. That means that I'm not the problem. The gun is the problem, which is kind of what I suspected. Now, it has shot like this from day one. So right now, there is a hole that goes through like that, all the way through, meaning there's a bit of an undercut right there. If I try to plunge straight down, I'm not going to get a whole lot of steel. So I need to go at a bit of an angle here. I can't use a standard drill bit because it will walk. It will not drill true and it will probably break the bit. The only solution here is to use a very tiny end mill. We're going to drill an 1/8 inch hole, which will be suitable for an 832 set screw at about a 5-degree angle. The split in the hanger made this quite challenging, and I decided to use 3 different taps. The first tap was a starter tap with a very gradual taper or lead-in. Then I had another one that was a bit more intermediate. After that, I used a bottoming tap to finish it. Where the set screw will contact the barrel has a 7/8 inch diameter.
I want the set screw to have a foot that rests on the barrel, and that foot is going to be made out of this 3/8 inch aluminum dowel. To fit the radius of the barrel, the closest end mill I have is 3/4 inch, which should be close enough. At the lathe, I mounted the rod in a collet and parted off the foot. Because aluminum is quite soft, I used a file to then clean it up. And then finally, drilled a little detent for the set screw.
Okay.
Using ye old plier wrench, I'm going to grab the set screw and grind one face flat. Then with a drill, I can spin it and use that to make a nice little radius on the other end. And that radius will register with the foot.
Downside is my set screw should have been made a little longer. Guess I'll remake it here. But you can see how it kind of pries up on here. You can raise it up and tension that. Pretty nifty. All right, I'm gonna go make a longer set screw and put the gun back together. You can see there's our set screw. There we go. And you can see how it's tucked right up under there. In fact, I can even adjust it with the spring installed. Here we go. Here's where we're at. I labeled the shots, so 1, 2, 3. That was the first group with the most tension. I then backed off the tension about 3/4 of a turn. Which is a good bit. And then I shot 4, 5, 6. Now, all right guys, I'm kind of on the struggle bus. Just went and shot another group. You can see 1 was high, and then 2 and 3 were better. This stock forend hanger screw was a bit too long, so I made a brass washer to shim it out. It was crashing into my forearm barrel tension screw that I made earlier. Now it has clearance and I can tighten the stock on adequately. What I did is I tightened the barrel forearm hanger set screw until I could tighten this on, and there was just a tiny gap in the forend here. I couldn't measure it because there's no way to get a feeler gauge in there, but probably about 1/5 of an inch. Then I went back with the set screw inside here, and I backed it off a 1/4 turn and then tightened the forend back on. And that's where I'm at right now.
With these new adjustments, I went back and took 3 more shots, and I got my best group yet. But unfortunately, on the following day, I could not reproduce these results. I noticed that some of my bullets were not chambering smoothly. Upon further investigation, I realized that the bullet was not crimped straight in the case for some of these. I measured and removed these crooked bullets and decided to do a test shot with some straight ones versus some crooked ones. All right, I got 2 targets and 6 bullets. I got 3 that are measuring good. I got 3 that are measuring definitely bad. Going to alternate at each target. Thought I'd take you with on the walk to the target this time. Kind of nice that I have a hill back here. Don't really need to put a berm anywhere because the whole hill is a berm. Kind of nice. Okay, results are in. This was the supposed bad ammo. First shot right, then left, then down. This was the supposed good ammo. First shot dead center, next shot right, and then third shot left. Next, I decided to free float the stock. To do this without removing a ton of wood, I used a small brass shim stock to space the forend out a little bit from the hanger. And then I took a card scraper and cleaned up any spots on the inside of the forend that was rubbing against the barrel. Just took a test shot after completing the free float of the forend, and that is where it went. I let everything sit for a day and then came back and took 2 more shots to verify that things were as they should be.
If I'm hunting, I will take at most 2 shots. So I want to see where both those shoot. That is the grouping that I'm most concerned about. Seems like a fairly tight group, so that's good.
I made an adjustment to the scope after the first 2 shots and took 3 more, and you can see I got a vertical stringer, which is the same thing that happened when I shot Dad's number 1. Regardless, one thing is certain. The gun is now shooting much more accurately. Okay, my gun seems to be shooting pretty well, so now I'm looking at my dad's number 1 chambered in 7mm rem mag. For his, I'm doing something a little bit different. I added this high molecular weight polyethylene plug in the front, and it acts like a mini V-block for the barrel. This is allowing the barrel to essentially free float between the forend except for that one point. Normally, the forend touches the barrel at the very front. Now there's going to be a little space. That space is now the thickness of this brass shim stock. On the right is a 2-shot group before the modification, and on the left is after that little V-block was installed. As you can see, the group tightened up significantly, and this might be the end of vertical stringers.
Now that I've proved that it works on Dad's, I'm going to go ahead and modify my number 1. First thing we're going to do is cut a ultra high molecular weight polyethylene plug to fit this hole. I'm going to use this tenon cutter to cut the plug, and it's going to cut a little oversized, but that's okay. I don't want to cut all the way through because the plug will get stuck in the tenon cutter. What I found was the easiest way to tune this little guy up is we'll put it in a wood lathe. This is a 4-jaw chuck, and these jaws are set up for pen turning, which is pretty much perfect for grabbing this little guy. That is just a slight taper. All right, so that actually fits pretty good, but it's a little wiggly. There we go, and now it's a perfect fit. Now the reason that worked, and I went to the lathe twice, is that when I pressed it into that pin, I could see how far in it went, and it went right about to there. So when I put it back on the lathe, I knew if I start cutting right there with my lathe tool, I can just push that back a little bit this way, and that will give me the exact diameter. So again, I'm matching the taper, finding out how far down it went into the hole, and that's where I start cutting. And I try to maintain that diameter going this way. Now I just trimmed it a little bit shorter, and now let's seat it in here. Let's start by making that V channel in the middle. Now this is a carving chisel. You can see it's kind of scooped like a little spoon. This conveniently is very close to the radius of the barrel. I'm going to use this just to work that so it's nice and even. Just test fit, and I could slip receipt paper everywhere all along here except for one spot. So Getting very close now. And then just one final touch. I'm going to take some True Oil and a little cotton pad and just touch things up in here just to seal it up. We'll let that dry and reassemble. All right, let's see if it passes the buck. Okay, that was good. Now on the side here, let's see, no issues. And on this side, which was previously tight, look at that.
After a one-shot bullseye with my dad's gun, I shot mine and I continued to have problems. So next, I investigated the scope mount. Well, shot 4.5 was pretty bad, so I remounted the scope. That means I loosened all the components and then reinstalled everything, relieving all tension. Then I took shot 6.7. I made an adjustment and took shot 8.9, waiting approximately 1 hour between the last two groups. Between shot 6.7, between shot 8.9, I waited about 20 seconds. So there we go, the conclusion. Free floating the forend so nothing touches the barrel except for that little polyethylene V-block that I made, and relieving any tension that happened to be built up in the scope and rings. But I still didn't have confidence in this gun, so I held publishing this video for over a month until I could shoot 200 yards.
Welcome to the cabin. This is a pine shooting bench I built a few years ago for left and right hand. This is after the generation 1 I built at home as a test. Now this is the final version. So this guy's got your wheels on the inside so we can roll it in and out real easily. It is very stable, very stiff, and it provides a great platform to shoot accurately. And I'm going to need that because at 200 yards, there is a bit of a cross breeze. Even though we're in the woods, there is a spot where there's a little wind. So that might change accuracy a little bit. But yeah, go take a few test shots with the Ruger SR556 Varmint Tactical and AB suppressor. And this is a Gen 1 Vortex PST, 4 to 16 power. Go ahead and take a few shots at paper and let's see how things are behaving and get myself practiced up for taking some shots with the number 1. All right, and I have my 10 round magazine in here. You can tell because it's not the long one. All right, let's go check our target. That's my first 3 shots cold with the Ruger at 200 yards. All right. Just made a small adjustment to the scope. I'm gonna take 3 more shots, and that should be a good enough warm-up for me. I can't imagine the next group's gonna look that nice. Can't help but think there's a little bit of luck. I mean, that's about as good as I can get. That's 200 yards. Yeah, the group opened up a little bit, but we're still just over an inch. That's a half MOA. That's really good. All right, it seems like I'm shooting just fine. So that's a good little confidence boost because now I'm going to get out my 7mm mag, the one I've been working on for this entire video, and give it a shot at 200 yards and see how it does. But dang, that 5.56 is good. Also, super underrated video on my channel. I thread the barrel on that 5.56 and I make this cool custom thread protector. I got a neat little star pattern on the end of it. So check that out, super cool. All right, now for that one shot that's had me super nervous for the last 2 days planning this trip up here. It's not bad, but now let's see where shot number 2 goes. Did not expect that. All right, well, I'm at the end of everything here, and I don't know what else to do. I got 5 shots left, and I have a scope that is the same 30 mil tube that I just sighted in on a different gun. Guess we're doing that again. So here we go. Let's see if we can't squish every variable and get to the bottom of this. All right, so shot number 1 right there by the 2A on the top of the target, and then I went 5 MOA down, which should put me right around the bullseye. But instead, we are, well, I don't know what the fuck we are.
I gotta pause the video for a second. This is a 4-shot group at 100 yards. And if you take out my adjustment, the 5 MOA down, so that that bullet is basically in the bullseye, this is a 4-shot group with 2 shots outside of the quadrant. And 1 quadrant is 3.5 by 3.5 inches. If you look at the hypotenuse, that is over a 5-inch 4-shot group at 100 yards with this gun.
Hey guys, it is Tuesday. I have the day off, and this morning I ran into Marquette and visited my local L&M Fleet Supply. They have a firearm department, and they were really helpful. Actually, met a guy named Joseph who used to work at Ruger on the CNC machines that made the receivers for the Ruger number 1. So I thought it was really cool. So I think the gun's in good hands, and right now it's being shipped off to Ruger service. Hopefully everything goes well. They have permission to contact me. Hopefully they call me and discuss what is wrong with the gun, and or at least what they find. And I'm hoping that it ends up being rebarreled. Right now, I kind of don't have faith in the barrel, and that's what I think is going on. If that is not the case, I might just pay to have it rebarreled. I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes. Again, I hope I hear from Ruger service, and we'll see how much this costs, because I can't imagine that there's not going to be a charge. This gun is from 1989, and I am at least the second owner. I don't really know anything about the gun before 2012. All I know is it's in excellent condition, just not very accurate. I will keep you up to date, and hopefully I'm in a good mood in the next clip. I just got the Ruger number 1 back, and they did not replace the barrel. What they did do is they re-crowned the barrel, and because I'm still familiar with the gun at this point, it was done with the barrel on the gun. So the barrel was not removed from the gun, they re-crowned it on the gun and then sent it back. Turnaround time was actually very quick. I was a little nervous about having the same barrel come back and having them just kind of removed a tiny bit of metal from the tip, but let me show you what's going on.
Here is the group. It's just over 1 inch at 75 yards. Going to go back in the shop now and make some adjustments to the scope, put my set trigger back in, which is around 2 pounds, and take it out to 200 yards at the cabin.
You can see that big splash on the target there on the left. That's the bullet. I was aiming for that target back there, though. Well, that's promising. Well, it's not the worst. Shit.
At this point, I was pretty distraught about how this gun's performance dropped off a cliff when I went to 200 yards. Not convinced it was entirely the gun's fault, I tried some more groups at home. I was not entirely pleased with the adjustable metal rifle rest I used at the cabin, so at home I went back to using just sandbags. I went and purchased the same ammunition that Ruger used for their test data, and they provided me the group that they shot, and ran that through the gun. That was not very impressive at 75 yards. Then I used the ammunition that I had been using and took a 3-shot group, and this time I was careful to wiggle the forend to make sure there was no binding or tension in it between shots as the barrel heats and cools, and I shot a adequate 3/4 inch group at 75 yards. Now gaining confidence in the gun again, I put my polyethylene V-block back in and installed the brass shim stock. The next group with the Winchester ammo was quite good. Then I reset my 0 on the scope, and the follow-up shot with the Hornady was perfect. With 7 consecutive shots, exactly where they should be, I'm finally getting confidence in this gun again. It is now shooting exactly the way my dad's number 1 was shooting.
I'm super happy with how this has turned out. Total pain in the butt. I wish I would have sent it to Ruger a lot sooner instead of messing with everything. But hey, here we are. I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. Take care. Hey! I forgot a hammer. Oh man. Doesn't impale us, which it shouldn't because it's kind of off to the side a little. Oh. Ow. Oh. Fire pit. Hang on. Ow. I don't know who put that there. That hurt. Anyway, hang on. That's better. Anyway.